According to my computer, it's now 7:30. Please, 7 o'clock.
I didn't hear you.
No, I know you. Welcome and thank you to those of you who've turned out on this rather chilly evening. We're about to start, but we couldn't possibly start without Jeremy. So,
Jeremy.
here he is. Flying in.
Just looking at my
coming out when I was coming in.
Just looking at my
Someone was coming in when I was coming out.
just looking at my watch.
I know, you would think that was alarm time. Sorry about that.
Fine. We start with the formalities. Yvonne, do we have any apologies?
Yes, our borough councillor has a couple of meetings. So he will.
Johnny Shilton sadly can't be with us. Do we have a declaration by any members of any junior or other interests?
Yes.
We have one on, is it
5.1.
5.1 concerns for planning application at Black Barn. And do we have any members seeking dispensation under the local? I don't believe so. No, nothing. Yvonne? No. Okay, final reminder that the meeting is being recorded, so as we now open the meeting for a public session, you should bear that in mind with any comments that you choose to make. So can I ask anyone who is here with a particular interest they wish to speak to take this opportunity? With no further, David, we'll hang on for you for a moment. Dave?
Yeah, just that as the unofficial flagman for the village, I put the flag up on Remembrance Day, and I just thought it'd be worthwhile me giving you an update on the state of the pole, etc., because there are some things that really need sorting out. First of all, the flag we have, it's going to last us a few more years, but it does need some stitching, otherwise it's going to start fraying. And if anybody knows anybody who can do it, it'll save you a few shillings that way. Flagpole at the moment is in need of a good wash down, but of course that's impossible to do without taking it down. So I have no idea about the pulley on the top. The halyard is going green and is quite slimy now, and that can be actually cleaned from the ground, so I intend doing that in the spring. The clips though that hold the flag are now rusty and very difficult to do and undo, and I would ask that we look into getting new clips. I can look into it and report back to you on the cost of those. They'll only be pennies anyway, but I'll leave that to you.
I expect our might be able to do that.
And that really is it.
Okay, well, I mean, those of us who were at the ceremony on Sunday realised there's a large element of the village who take a great deal of interest in that memorial and that particular date, so I'm sure we'll take that on board, and Alf will do some things and you'll do some things, and we'll get the rest done by whoever.
Yeah.
To make sure next year that it's.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's fine. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on any particular matter? Greg? Or?
I wanted to speak on the planning application for land between Tile House and Mount Pleasant.
Sure.
I may not be the only one.
No, kind.
So shall I kick off?
Yes, you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, I won't speak for that long. The revised submission for this is definitely an improvement on the drawing submitted in March this year. There are a number of qualities which the scheme now has that it didn't before, and I'm pleased to see those. However, it remains my view that to justify development on such a site in the AONB, as it is planning policy view as well, a scheme should be exceptional, and I don't believe that this is sufficiently exceptional to justify its building on that site. I think it could be for For instance, it could be a zero carbon scheme and be an exemplar of where we have to go in the next 20 years.
5.
Well, actually, yeah, five. And I think there are things that this scheme could offer the village and the surrounding community that it doesn't yet. So I'm afraid I will be writing an objection to it, and I wish I wasn't, genuinely. I just want to say one point of detail, which is about safety. This is the third time this scheme or iterations of this scheme have come forward, and in each case the drawings state that there is an existing footpath along Stocks Road on the north side to the site. There isn't, and there isn't room for that footpath, and if the scheme is built without proper pedestrian access, it will be unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Again, your rehearsing points, I think that we have heard before, but we do take them on board and appreciate your interest. Before I ask Dave from the developers to speak, is there anybody else who wishes to speak? We've all read the various comments that have been made online and recognise the fact that a large proportion of the village are interested in this particular development. Yes, Kate.
When I was last at this meeting, at a meeting to discuss this application, I asked if the parish council knew what the rural exception site status actually amounted to, or whether it was just a sort of bargaining chip. I couldn't get an answer from the parish council, despite the answers that I did find in various documents about the rural housing initiatives. I couldn't get an answer from Ashford Borough Council. It appears to be pertinent, though, to the whole idea of the hybrid scheme, which is something that Mary Walton has already raised in her objection. And I wonder if anybody has been able to make head or tail of that rural exception status.
Well, I believe this is something that the developer is claiming. Is it a rural exception in this case?
It's a hybrid, yes.
Yeah. So, to be honest, I think we have already probably been just as confused as you are, because people seem to feel strongly in one direction or another.
May I say something else about that? It's clear from all the indications from National Planning Policy Framework and any documents one might find about rural exception in areas of outstanding national beauty, that the parish council should know all about the award of that status. And if Ashford can't even answer the question, I'm wondering if...
It isn't a rural exception site.
Okay.
It's simply been named as such in the application.
Well, it's quite complicated, the application, especially the financial viability assessment, and it has been boggling me, and I think it's boggled a few others.
I'm sure.
I think, if I may,
Yes,
way back, possibly before even this developer, there used to be talk about rural exception sites. And at that time, and this may have been in the previous Ashford plan, because the Ashford plan has been rewritten, the 2030 plan, rather than the previous one while I've been kicking around here. But certainly at some point, the exception site policy ruled out this approach. This could not be built on a rural exception site because it's got market housing on it. That used to be clear. That is why Ashford, not the developer, came up with this idea of, so far as I could make out from bits of, chatter, the hybrid idea was to say, well, the exception site idea has a principle behind it, which is, if you want to build affordable housing, you may need to put it on an exception site and not on a site that comes at full value. But you can't then put market housing on it, but if you're not going to put market housing on it, you're not going to get your affordable housing, because however affordable it is, someone has to pay for them. Therefore, why don't we say, well, we'll have a bit of exception site, that sounds a good idea, we'll have a bit of market housing, because that'll pay for whatever we want, and Ashford does want housing, together and we'll call it a hybrid. And I think you probably will struggle in vain to find the policy to support it, other than principles to support it. And that's the basis on which I think Ashford have gone, is the principles of saying, I want affordable, I need market to pay for affordable. How do I do it in whatever circumstances? I know I'll roll it all together and say everybody wins. Fair or not, that I think is how it's developed.
I think that's very true.
And you don't think it's publicly written up? Because
I don't know.
I've searched in
believe
vain
me,
for
I do
this
not
famous
spend.
exception site status having been
I do not
awarded in
keep-
October
I do not
2021.
I do not keep Plan 2030 by my bed. I have no idea
More
what's
than
in there. I suspect not. There are various other contradictions in Plan 2030, like things surrounding it, like the village envelope was a complete nonsense. They described what the village envelope had to be in writing. The inspector accepted it with obviously not having read it properly. They then came to draw the village envelope. It doesn't match the words because nothing could match the words because they were contradictory. You couldn't have a village envelope on the policy. So I'm sorry to say, but it's life, that there are things in the plan, or in your particular point not in the plan, that are not as they should be, but that is how they are.
Thank you, Jeremy, for that explanation. Anybody else?
Yeah, can I
Miriam?
just follow on this point, because I think we're getting ourselves a bit confused from at least from what I have understood that the developer is claiming. Certainly the viability study is working on the basis that this is a rural exception site. All the figures are based upon that principle. Now, the first principle of a rural exception site is the definition of the MPPF. And the definition in the MPPF is that these are small sites. Right? Now, this site, by any measure, could never be described as small. There's 6.2 acres of land which is going to be developed for housing, and then, according to the viability study, another 1.2 acres which will be required for the drainage, and that strip that you see on the plan, the big long road going down to the attenuation basin. If we look at the village, I can't see a site that has been built in the village that is as big as this. Obviously many of them have got more houses on, but in terms of land take, this is huge. Exception sites are not huge like this. It is completely against the principle of an exception site. Now, Jeremy was referring to the old exception site policy, TRS 4. We now have WHO 2. They're fundamentally pretty much the same. I think they're always, the desire has always been not to have market housing on these sites, but it's increasingly become obvious that that's not always possible. And the MPPF rather pushed Ashford's hand by saying that some market houses could be allowed. Now, Ashford's own policy accepts that now, and in the preamble to it, it says if we have to have some market houses on here to make these local needs houses viable, we want to see affordable houses and custom built ones. So starter homes basically for people trying to get onto the property ladder, and custom built. Now, okay, so there's two custom built, we'll give them that, but they are very big plots, which they're talking about being at least 350,000 for the plot. So, you know, who are they going to appeal to? It's not going to be the young people in the village, in my opinion. So we're not fulfilling the policy here, because the other houses on there, I mean, I've just printed off what we're getting. I mean, 850,000, 700,000, 710, 680. I mean, even the ones for downsizing. I mean, 540. There's no bungalows for the downsizers now. They're all two-story, which is not what people ask for. them at 540 and one of them, the 2-bed, at 375. Does this fit what the people in the village want? I mean, we're told it's a bespoke scheme for Wittersham. The data that we are working with, we've got to understand, actually comes from 6 years ago in November 2018. And the questions these people were asked were, do you have a need now? Do you have a need in 2 years' time? Or do you have a need in 5 years' time? Well, it's 6 years now, probably another couple of years before this was built, and I doubt that it would ever be built anyway. So, you know, the data we are working with is no longer valid.
If you could
Yeah,
round,
sorry,
round
okay,
up.
if you don't want me to continue, that's absolutely
Well,
fine.
we do hear you loud and clear, and they're very good points, and very well made.
I mean, I do have a lot of points, but if I've had my 2
Yeah,
minutes,
I'm
and that's
afraid
the council's
your
policy.
time is up. Anyone else wish to talk to this planning application? So now I'll ask David Tatterton, representing the developer, who's heard now the no doubt he will have read all the comments on the website, and perhaps you could address some of the points that you're hearing tonight here.
By all means, and I think some of the points are, as you say, are valid, and I think the main reason why the application that came before you in the early part of the year was questions and change, was taking into account interpretation of the development by other parties in area about zoning, natural beauty, and also the affordable housing. So we've made certain changes, and so for example, you made points relating to the local needs survey, and that's been a little bit reinterpreted by the housing department and the planners, so to the extent where they have decided that the appropriate thing to do was to increase the number of affordable units, whereas it was 7 before, it's now 8. You mentioned the fact that there aren't the same number of downsized units.
No,
The only thing that's changed is we've got one additional unit, which is a 2-bedroom terrace property. So all the affordable units also was questioned where they were, how tight they were on the scheme. So they've been more spread out. They've been bigger gardens. It's been questioned how large some of those gardens were on the scheme. Now, whilst you might take the view we're not birds, so no one sees it in a bird's eye point of view. We've taken on board what's been said. So the land spread has been increased and shared amongst all the different tenures. We've also we had to detail who is actually able to use the affordable housing units, and there's a cascade arrangement which starts at the village and it spreads out depending on what the need is. So if the need is here, because you made the point about the fact that well, it may have changed. Well, it changed progressively over time. So in 5 years' time it will be different, and 5 years after that it will be different. So what it always comes back to, because of the legal agreement we've been obliged to enter into, would be the village would get first choice on the units, whether they be downside units or 2 or 3 bedroom units for families, wherever the need was, and then it would spread out. So that was something that Simon Cole, who's the head of planning, wanted. He was very particular about that. He was very particular about his design team on how the scheme was laid out. So we've got the circular road now. We've got the area of open space to be used by all in the middle. So we've got one less market unit. We've got one more affordable unit, and the scheme is, apart from that, is what was put before you at the beginning of the year, which I think it went down as well as could be expected. So I'm hoping that you're going to consider that what we've now put in front of you is a step up on that, apart from the comments that have been made about the footpath, which I take on board, and I think we made a note of that last time. It hasn't. We've got to relay that, however, through the local authority, and that's a comment I made last time. They have to make a decision. There's no path. For there to be a path, they have to be involved in.
Probably better not to say existing path on the drawing then.
Yeah, I quite agree. I quite agree.
Thank you, David. Is Is there anybody else who would like to comment further? Any councillor wish to
I'd
talk?
like to ask David some
Yes,
questions, but if anyone else wants to speak first.
I think you've got the floor.
It's a handful, David, of things. First one was just a small point, a bit like the path. The development red line out towards the attenuation tank, your drawings vary as to where it stops, sometimes just a little away from the houses, sometimes right up at this. And obviously the red line is something that's quite important for the plan, so I think you're going to have to look at making sure that's corrected. You said that the site road is not to be adopted, and I noticed that KCC say you've got to enter into some sort of legal agreement to indemnify the refuse vehicles, and I assume that will be done.
Yes.
And they haven't all got to line their bins up on the
No.
B road.
No. Why is it?
Are the plans settled for how you're going to provide the affordable housing? Is it going to be housing association staircasing that you spoke
It
of
is
before?
staircasing. If you look online, there's the heads.
It's still there. Okay.
And also,
I didn't spot it.
The idea is we go to the housing associations that are the preferred partners of Ashford, or indeed Ashford themselves are showing
They could as
interest
well, okay.
in the unit.
But that will help, thank you. We spoke a long, long time ago, back in COVID, about, I think, about the upkeep and maintenance of the common areas. You said it was,
residents.
you said it had nothing to do with the parish council, so it's going to fall on the residents.
Yes.
And of course, it's now more land and less residents. Is that still viable? You feel it can be done?
Yes, it is.
It will be
still
okay.
viable.
Okay.
Depends how much work you do, and it's my job as developers to try and make it as maintainable as possible.
The 1.8 metre wide footway, which Greg's raised, you and I have spoken several times about the idea of actually cutting across to the south side on the small bend by the garage. Is that something that's been brought up at all with Ashford? I mean, is it going anywhere?
I think what I said last time was, please can you actually went and
Well, we did.
and I think we'll do it again because it's a new iteration of the plan.
So we've got to put it in again. Okay, that's fine. But it's not gone anywhere so far. All right. You're going to move the 30 mile an hour limit eastwards, 100 metres, 120 metres, which is great. The PC had a discussion with KCC on various highway schemes a while ago, and one of our items on the wish list, the golden wish really, was to have a chicane up at that end because people do thunder into the village much too fast down the hill. They didn't rule out the idea of a chicane. I mean, they didn't say yes, but they didn't say no. But what they did say, it would have to be lit to meet their rules, and there was no way we could do that. But of course you could, because you're going to have a lighting scheme on your roads anyway. So you could actually run across and light a chicane there. The chicane's not too difficult. The problem is it's got to have lighting on it.
Yeah, I think I'm not so sure about that because our system will be a private system, I think.
Oh, it would obviously have to be agreed by Kent, but the fact is
the practicalities, I'm not sure about.
So we'll put that in as something with light.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
on your
just
wish list.
I'm floating it for you so you don't see it.
But the practicalities, because you've got two lights on the road that are on an adopted road, sounds very complicated to me on who pays for what.
Bit of wire.
Okay.
We'll have a go at that, I think. The 12 metre length of hedge to be removed, is that just where you're going to have your access?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't have to mess with the rest of the hedge, which we used to worry about years and years ago, Miriam will remember well. Or do you have to set that back a bit or anything? Because you still want to have a hedge along the frontage of the whole scheme, and you've got to have your flares.
Yeah, I don't think no one will set it back any further.
You don't, you're okay, fair enough. The development is assessed in the viability report, if I understood it, as not being viable. Have you got a sort of and Miriam was just touching on that as well. You know, the numbers come out at a negative number where they should be a positive number, I thought.
I think in terms of the viability, it's not the best viable scheme, I can assure you.
No, I don't suppose it is. But it's still a runner, potentially.
I wouldn't be here.
On the edge, okay. I'm delighted to see the air source heat pumps. and I'm all in favour of that. For the idea of an exceptional scheme, it's disappointing not to see, because you're going to be doing new builds. No mention of solar power, no mention of proper water harvesting. I don't mean a water butt, I mean proper water harvesting reuse. Nothing on that line, because that would be good.
We meet the standards what we're told to
Yes, but there's this
They will have
idea of
altered in
an
a few years'
exceptional
time.
scheme.
Yeah, I can only do what I can do with the as you say,
So we
the
will,
viability is
Okay.
it's not a very viable
No.
scheme. We will
Okay.
do what
so
we
we'll
have
push.
to do to meet the standards.
We'll push.
We,
Right. And the draft 106 is to follow. Has there been any discussion? We had discussions with ABC about 106, but they are very unhelpful on that. Have you had any discussions on the 106 that would relate back to the parish council? Because they
No,
do have
no.
ideas for us.
No. So we have produced a draft 106 which includes the cost that we have been asked to pay to the authorities. But I think again you need to make your proposal to
Yeah,
actually.
we did, but we can do it again.
What's on your
But
agenda?
does it have anything in there that says Wittersham Parish Council, or is it all Kent and Ashford and NHS? Nothing for us to all,
And,
isn't it?
I think it must be published on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Is it not?
No.
And
They are very unhelpful in that, so we're used to it. Okay.
and I think the health
But you've
service
not
as well have just there's a letter from the health service saying they're on £20,000.
I saw it, yes,
From
indeed.
Mrs. Manchie that from now.
New bed pans. Okay, that's all.
Okay, Jeremy,
Thank you.
thanks. And thank you, David, also. Are there any further points? Yes,
May I
Kate.
say one more thing? There might be 105 extra people living on this edge of the village. That's an increase of 10% on the number of people that presently live in Wittersham. So it's quite a big community. I mean, I think 105 is when you fill every bedroom. And between them they have spaces for 42 parkings. So we are actually looking at quite a big influx into the village all at once. And I think I would just like to endorse what Jeremy asked for in terms of a more fit for purpose 21st century housing scheme which does have solar panels on every house so that everybody can benefit from managing their own electrical consumption, or at least thinking about it. We're coming to the point where it will be compulsory on all new builds, and it feels to me as if in Wittersham we should be campaigning, as it were, or at least I'll be campaigning for the highest level of, if not zero carbon, at least carbon reduction and climate change mitigation. All 105 people should be involved in that.
Personally, I can claim not guilty on that point, as you probably know, for our house.
Well, so that's a very good example to put forward.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. We have all read, I think, most of the comments, and infrastructure. The effect on infrastructure is one of the big points that a lot of people make. So, if nobody's got anything else they wish to say, I'm going to close the public session.
So I'll have all the things to say, but I've had my 3 minutes and I accept that. But
Yeah.
in the past, we've been allowed to have a fuller debate. We've been able to come back and answer the questions that the developers put his kindly tried to put his case. And I'm disappointed we haven't had this on this occasion, but I accept that's a rule and you want to abide by that. So I'll shut up. I did just want to say one other thing. Just thank you for the Scarecrow Trail money. It was successful. The weather was absolutely awful. I think we got a lot of positive feedback, and I think it's definitely something we can take forward for next year. And there's people with loads of other ideas for events. So I think we did get the community spirit that I was trying to sort of explain to the parish council that we're hoping for. So it was successful in that respect, and the money that you and Councillor Shilton gave us really helped, and we've actually made some money as well. So really a big thank you for supporting that.
And I think you and Mary and Mary Ann, I think, put in a fantastic effort. It was far better than I ever kind of envisaged.
Yes.
Really good.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
well, it's the people of the village. I mean, we've clearly got loads of talent in this village, and we need to tap into it because we are some incredible people. And they are all enthusiastic, and just got the feeling we're not tapping into it as much as we could. So thank you very much for supporting it. It was really appreciated, and everybody was delighted with their prizes. So, and I got a piece of the going out bit, and I'll certainly mention the parish council's support in that.
Well,
Thank you.
congratulate you and your friends who organised it, and I entirely endorse your point about trying to tap the talent of the village, which I am certainly going to try to do, and I think my colleagues feel very much the same. Thank you all for your comments. We'll now go into session. No. Would you like to speak?
Yes.
Oh, fine, sorry.
Oh, no, okay. Cheers, sorry, I heard your guidance.
Okay. Fine. Obviously, no. Are you happy just to listen to what we're going to say about it?
The councillors want to ask any questions.
Yes, any questions about any of the other planning applications?
No.
Because we obviously they will come ask you. So, luckily for you, fine. We're now going to start our proper meeting, which you're very welcome to listen to, but you will not be able to comment on our discussion. The first formal item is just to confirm the minutes of the last meeting, which was chaired by Vice Chairman Alan. Everybody who was there had a chance to read them. You all happy that they represent a true picture of what was discussed and said? I will sign it. Initials?
Yes. And it's just sign in the gap here, please.
4.
12.
12.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay. We will now move straight on to the planning applications so that those involved have a chance to leave after their particular interest if they wish to do so. Item 1 involves Blackbarn Poplar Road. Paul here declares an interest, is interested. It's his planning application. Councillors, any comments to make? No. So I'm happy to propose that we support this application.
Yes.
Yes.
I see no problems with it.
No.
All agree?
Thank you.
Fine. The one that we've been talking about, Maltower House in Mount Pleasant. Anybody like to make particular points in connection with this? It has been discussed on a number of occasions, the different submissions as they come. Alan, have you got something you'd like to say?
I have got something I'd like to reserve it till a bit later on, if I may. Because when we come to vote, I might say something then.
Well, we are.
We're sort of doing it now.
We're in it.
Okay, and I was
might be
looking at Paul. I thought we were going to get him to start.
Would you like me to go first?
Yeah.
I've got a few points
Fine.
I'd like to make, if I may. I mean, with your obviously encouragement, I read through all 72 comments, a majority of which were objecting. I was disappointed in the number of comments. I really hoped we were going to get more than that, because as the previous borough councillor said, even when you get sort of, if you take out what I call the statutory ones from the Environment Agency and the NHS, etc., there were only about sort of 57, 58 comments from people in the village. Now at a potential 1,000, I felt that was a very low response. I'm not going to comment on what I call the statutory or planning regulations, because frankly that is above my pay grade in my understanding, and Ashford will make those decisions. The financial viability one was interesting because there were a few people who went to great length to explain that this project would never be financially viable. And just to take David's point, I just have to take to a certain amount of trust they're not going to build something that's going to be a loss, that they can't sell, and that's never going to have any financial viability, because it is a commercial proposition. Anyone worth their salt is going to never go into something that's going to be at a loss before the first brick is laid. The environment and the regulatory bit around that, it was quite interesting. The Environment Agency gave a very measured response, which was actually not objecting at all. They went through all sorts of things, and I anticipated an objection there. I think that the other 2 points that came out that concerned me were some of the comments that were made by people who objected, in particular the one about the school. And it's my understanding, I mean, I don't know how many people remember, but when I first came onto the parish council, which was 13 years ago, was it? 12 years ago? You know, I joined together. The school was in quite difficult circumstances. They didn't have enough pupils. And as a result of that, they put a lot of effort into gathering pupils from outside the parish, Appledore, Stone and so on. It was published about a week ago. The birth rate in this country is declining, so that the chances are that we might well need more pupils to keep it going in the future. The second thing is my understanding that Wittersham residents, the children thereof, have always got priority. I mean, that was reiterated. So I was concerned when someone said there was a family who came into the village and their children aren't allowed to go to the school. They can't go to the school. But I think that was one of the points that a lot of people raised, that if we have these houses, there are going to be a whole load more children, and our children in Wittersham won't be able to go to the school. And my understanding is that that's incorrect. The other points that were made were there is absolutely no need for any affordable social housing in the village. I've made a point on each time this has come up to go and talk to residents in the village that don't come to parish council meetings for various reasons. They're shy, they feel that they can't stick their head above the parapet, and 2 people told me they were just afraid to make their comments known publicly, which is a shame. I know 2 sets of people who are very keen on the self-builds and feel they have the skills. We have some very skilled craftsmen in the village that we sometimes forget. And the other thing, other end of the scale is I did some research that I mentioned a few months ago. The average house price in this village over the last couple of years, according to Rightmove, is about £650,000 plus. Frankly, nobody who needs housing in this village can really afford it. And there are 2 families recently who've got big houses that want to stay in the village and downsize, and they can't find anywhere to go. And the other thing somebody mentioned to me, which actually shocked me, she said, you do know that all the kids at Wittersham Primary School at the moment will never be able to afford to live in the village. And if you look at the survey that was published about 6 days ago, the average house price rise over the next 5 years in the southeast, and here's an average, it's 17.5%. And if you look at what the prices that people have talked about today, to get 10% as a deposit, unless you've got wealthy parents who can basically provide the bank and mum and dad, and that means that we will get a drift out of people in this village who just can't afford to live where they grew up, where their parents grew up, and where their grandparents are currently are. So pulling all that together, I think it's, and the other point that was made, there was no offers of employment in the village, and when I put that to several people of what I call the 25 to 35-year-old generation, they almost laughed at me and said, you do realise that people don't work in their villages anymore. We commute or more and more and more. It's called the digital world. And I did feel very old at that stage. But then I realised I've been working remotely for 20 years. I do get on the train occasionally and go to London, but that's it. So pulling it all together, I am pleased that in the spirit of democracy people did engage. I thought there'd be more engagement, and I didn't see any evidence whatsoever of alternative suggestions for providing affordable or social housing in our village, which I think was a great shame. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Jeremy.
I've looked at the comments made by residents on the portal. The majority object to the proposals, allowing for many of them there being multiples over the years. As you go through the names, you come across them again. This land's been argued over. The years the land's been argued over. The public view as expressed there is certainly against proceeding, although a far larger proportion of the population has remained silent, as always, demonstrating their unconcern either way. And I did speak to one this morning who echoed that exactly and said, not bothered. Many points there are raised on matters of planning policy, and they make potentially a strong case. The same could mostly be adduced for the whole of the High Weald National Landscape. It's 560 square miles of southern England, and it houses 120,000 residents at the minute. They seemingly do not destroy the landscape value. Much the same applies to all the national landscapes that cover in all 15% of England, and then the national parks are another 9.3%, so there's 25% of England is in land which is limited by the same rules that apply to us. Now, since planning is about balancing contradictory policies, and the officers are qualified in those issues, I'll leave that side to them. They have enough with which to recommend against the scheme, if they wish, or they have other policies available to support it. And in my role as a parish councillor, I have no need to weigh in on that. My local interests are different. I share the view that was first put to us in around 2012, and Paul was there as well, that villages are at their best if they grow, and Sue, if they grow, not too fast overall, but neither stagnate nor decline. I have so far always supported schemes put forward on this site since the mid-2010s, including earlier this year, although on that occasion I made my reservations known when I voted. My concern then was about the use of a large site which could easily accommodate 30 properties at low density being wasted instead for just 20. This is a profligate use of land that, as the objectors keep saying, once it's gone, it's gone. I think ahead to the time there's a requirement for land for another 10 houses and another piece of field will be needed. This is wrong-headed, and it's a serious criticism of the planners and the planning system if a better solution to the earlier scheme for 30 houses is to build 20 instead on the same bit of land. We're not talking about back-to-back slum dwellings here, but houses set so far apart that land maintenance will likely become an issue for the future. I was also concerned to read the account of discussions between the developer and ABC, which are in the documents, that the planners see this in terms, Miriam actually commented on this as well, as a little scheme simply for Wittersham to offer some local needs housing, plus as few market houses as are necessary to make it viable, or possibly not viable. The usual 40% rule, they said, is not needed. That's actually quoted in there. Although ABC nevertheless said that since 40% of 18 market houses is 7 and a bit, they call it 8, not 7, and that's how it went up one. Now I fear this indicates they, the planners, have forgotten their role is to plan the land use across the borough to provide all it needs, including housing, something they already struggle with, so I remain heavily torn between the merits of this latest scheme and its disadvantages. That's not to discount use of this site for mixed housing, which I've always supported, just that it's a scandalous waste of land for far too few new homes. And then it's been put to me that if this development is to go ahead on an exception site basis, even with the mystical term hybrid added to it, which may or may not have a basis that serves the gods of planning policy, then it really should be exceptional. And I've already raised the fact that apart from being the lowest density imaginable, too low in my view, it should be highly performant environmentally, and that means not just the use of air source heat pumps, which I applaud, and I, like John, can do that because I've got one, but also plentiful solar panels, I've got them, properly engineered water harvesting, no I haven't and I can't, and I mean, by the way, water harvesting for at least for all rainwater, not just to fill a water butt. Maybe grey water, I don't know. It needs a specialist to know how much water you need to be able to use in the toilet flushing in a house, and of course watering the garden. Incidentally, if water was harvested better, it would ease the flow of water to the ancient woodland, which has caused a problem in the past with some residents who've said the ancient woodland species could suffer from too much water running down from the attenuation tank, and obviously the more you can reuse into the domestic systems, then the better. So they are my thoughts in terms of the scheme itself, and I'll wait until I've heard from everybody else until we have a vote. But I am torn.
Thank you so much for spending so much time.
I think
to explain?
what
Colin, yes, carry on.
Jeremy just said doesn't need to be reinforced, but I will do at times. I remain very unhappy both occasions, and I voted against the proposal. I see some positives in this development, but I don't think it goes far enough in meeting the requirements for the 25th century. It needs to be moved forward, and I think it doesn't do service to the people in Wittersham. And I think that if we want to develop a community which is going to progress in itself, then we need some new blood in the village. I find that we seem to be stagnating as a village. Having only been here 9 years, and I have found that not a lot has been achieved in the larger maze. Small good positives have been achieved, but not the bigger picture. And I remain doubtful that we can achieve the objective which this building project presents.
Okay, thank you, Colin, for those words. Sue, would you like to?
Yes, I'm basically going to support everything that's been said. We know there are people that want the low-cost housing, and an awful lot of them won't stand up and say anything because of the abuse that they received when it all started, 10 years ago probably now. And they are champing at the bit to get in there. So basically that's what I'd like to say. And there's also people that want to downsize.
Sure. Sally?
I would agree with what other people say. Well, I think we do need growth in the village. We haven't had a lot of growth if you look at other villages. They've tried to put sites that come out in the centre of the village on Poplar Road, and we've seen that doesn't work. So it is a case that people are building on the outskirts of villages, even though that's taking open fields. And again, I'm disappointed in the environmentally friendly things like solar panels, and I think that in this day and age should be given.
Sure. And you've got
John,
a chance to...
Thank you. I wanted to hear what everybody else said before I put in, which is unfair, but then why not? And I've got an interest in the way in which the village works. I've been observing it both professionally and socially for a long time, and I've been here for getting on for over 45 years. And the village does lack a certain cohesion, which I can remember. We did have a time when all the local societies and people got together and it worked awfully well. But I remember with great sadness some of the things that have happened here, and I fear that we're in risk of making another mistake if we don't do the right thing here. I mean, there are quite a few of us who remember the village hall, the proposed new village hall, which fell for extraordinary reasons. And then I really can't help feeling that the sports club agenda is a sad one, because I do see it should have been a simple thing to sort, but we've been now in about our 10th year of arguing bitterly about that, and we've argued bitterly about this one, and I think it's really, I think there's an opportunity here for the village to pull its socks up really and start to work together in a very nice and friendly way. I think I've got a continuing concern that we'll get something in the way of a housing development in the village, whatever we do and say here tonight. And there have been other plans submitted, and for me, this one represents the best option. I take the point that perhaps there are more open spaces within it than we envisaged in the beginning, but then hopefully we'll get some people living there. We might get people living there who are keen on gardening and other rural recreational activities. There are a lot of objections on the page. I've had opportunities over the last 10 years to talk to an awful lot of people who haven't submitted anything, but they are in favour. Actually, quite a lot of them feel intimidated. Sufficiently intimidated that they say, well, I think it's a jolly good idea, but I don't flag it up, I don't write anything in, because I'm actually scared of the backlash that will come my way. And that's dreadful. We shouldn't really have that in the village. We really shouldn't have that. And there's been quite a lot of bitterness about it all, and that, I must say, I've got to say, that saddens me greatly. It's not what I found when I first moved here. And certainly I've also heard that the school has been subscribed with children. I think this is a good thing. If there are going to be children living there, let's hope there are. But I think the school does have room, and we bring them in from Sussex and so on, bring children from Sussex and so on. So I don't think that's a valid concern. That's about it. Sorry, I'm going to go on a bit, but there you are. I'm not going to go on. I could go on for hours, but I won't bother.
Mr. Chair, can I just add one point? This whole issue of growth, and we are suffering over the last 10, 12 years for lack of volunteers. I mean, if you think of, in fact, if you look round this table here, you know, none of us have ever had to stand opposed, which some people might think is a good idea, but there's no real commitment to provide. We've really struggled with manning the committee of the village hall. That's been a huge struggle. The pub is now shut, and in fact, I applaud your recent plea to the Wittersham population to support potential acquisition of the pub as a community asset, and the response, frankly, was despicable. It was really poor. And you haven't said that, but I know that it was so disappointing.
Well, that's part of the intimidation which exists in the village, and
we need more volunteers, and we're only going to get that if we grow the population and bring young people.
Yeah, that's part of the intimidation. It shouldn't be happening.
Thank you all for your comments. Personally, as a relative newcomer, I'm really impressed at the depth of interest that my fellow councillors have taken in this project, and the sensible manner in which they've declared whether or not they favour it. So I am now going to ask councillors to vote, and initially could I have those who are in favour of this development to raise their hands, please? Right, that seems to me conclusive that we do support this application. I'm in favour of cabinet responsibility. I will vote for it as well.
Could we add, as we often do when we support a planning application, this point about the whole sustainability, solar panels, you know, making ourselves fit for the future. I can't remember whether there's a stipulation they should all have a rainwater butt, but having been told by Ashford recently myself, I can't believe you absolutely must, and electrical points. But to the thought of building any houses, new houses, without solar panels, to me seems ludicrous. And I think it's important we add that rider or that comment.
Can I suggest, if people are willing to support this, Chairman, that we do actually put in a narrative rather than just that we support it. We usually do, even if we are supporting. We always do when we're objecting. So I think it's still worth. I raised a number of points, others did as well. The clerk will have them, and we should actually be putting them to Ashford, saying the council supports it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
My only reservation is that there are people out there now who are saying that solar panels are old hat and new technology is going to supplant them really quite soon.
What, magic?
Magic.
Yes.
And the pathway.
Obviously, I would stress that whatever we say can be overturned at Ashford. This is a long-standing situation. It's been to appeal before and been rejected. Large number of so there's no guarantee things will go either way, but there is a very strong feeling around this table, clearly, that the development should proceed, and we can only reflect that. So thank you everybody who has commented, and we're going to move on to the next planning application. Anyone who wishes to leave having heard about the Tower House application, David, thank you for coming. And so Leghorn Bungalow, Keening Quarter Road. I have a feeling this isn't going to prove particularly controversial. Would you like, you can't say, we've just got
Thank
to
you.
decide now. Okay. I think, again, we've read a lot of supportive comments from neighbours, and everybody seems extremely pleased, thinks it's an improvement, and I have no hesitation suggesting that Councilman, yes, okay, ask you, could I have the hands up of all those who support, please? Yeah, thank you. And me. So that's universally supported. We wish you good luck.
Thank you very much.
So we'll now revert to item 4, matters arising. The Swan update, this falls clearly into my lap. Paul has mentioned, as I've confided to him and to others, that the response to my appeal in Outlook was very disappointing. I went beyond that to write specifically to certain people in the village to see if I could garner support from them, and although they're 2 or 3 enthusiastic souls, and I've spoken to 1 or 2 people more recently who reckon that they would show an interest, nothing concrete to report in the way of success, but we have had an informal debate, and it's been suggested that we should try once more with a meeting, a village meeting on this particular topic, invite everybody to turn up. I would suggest maybe sometime towards the end of January, maybe end of January, and to make it the final chance to see whether there is sufficient support in the village, whatever form it might take, and offer people the opportunity to put their names forward, and touch wood, something could happen, but so far I'm afraid there hasn't been much progress.
If we undertook that, would we use the Outlook to give people information as soon as possible?
Yeah, to give them notice of the proposed meeting,
Yeah.
yes, certainly we would give them time.
Yes, the more time the better in
Yes,
terms
fine.
of...
Yes, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
there's no December, there's no January Outlook, so it's got to be December, which means you've got 3 days.
Yes.
That was part of the reason, but thank you, Jeremy.
I was unaware of no January Outlook, so we will either address it in the current Outlook, or we will postpone the meeting so that we can...
Because January people will forget if it's December.
February might be better.
Christmas, yeah, fine.
But I think the earliest point we can say that this we want to address once and for all.
Yes,
We
definitely.
might put an early warning in December and then repeat it in
Watch this space.
Okay. Sports club lease. Has anybody got more up-to-date information than I have? No. We're slightly nervous about the progression of the negotiations, but Stuart, who I believe is chairing the committee. There are two issues. Well, the main issue is the two issues: the sports club converting to a CIO, which relieves the trustees of the responsibilities that they've had, and that is proceeding, I think, although there may be 1 or 2 legal issues that they have to sort out. And connected with that, obviously, is the renewal of the lease running out in March, and negotiations with Willie Everett and John, representing John Mallet. And what we have done is just to make it quite clear that the parish council is very interested in these 2 matters proceeding, and we'll be monitoring them through various people we know involved, and should it run into the ground for any reason, then we will take more of an interest and possibly even take over things in as far as we're able to. But it's a very important matter for the village, and we will keep it as an agenda item, and update regularly. Item C, possible transfer of land belonging to ABC at Bottom Farm Field, update. I've met with Yvonne to discuss this matter. Jeremy took it quite a long way previously, but we agreed, did we not, that we wanted to see the outcome of the Tile House application.
Yes, I think once we know whether we've got Section 106 money coming into it, will make a difference as to what we can do or what we can tell Ashford we want to do. Either way, if we're not, then we can tell Ashford what we want.
No.
But I think we need to have something definite to work on, that we're going to tell them what we want, why we want it.
Did we get any inclination of how much we're talking about?
No, they wouldn't give us that.
Is there any way we can make a sort of rough estimate? Because at the moment it seems that we're sort of so very much in
You're in tens of thousands, the higher tens rather, but not the hundreds. You're in the higher tens of thousands, I think. We were told we used to have a number.
Yeah.
Then most recently we were told by the lady that she wasn't allowed to tell us, although she gave us an indication.
Yeah.
And I've since heard that that is rubbish and that they are supposed to tell us. But with Ashford, as always, left hand, right hand, fall down the middle.
Is it worth saying we make the assumption of X, see if that will flush them out, or do we ask Johnny if he can quietly
Johnny
find
ought
out?
to be able to find out. I think there's not only the amount of money, but what you're legally allowed to ask to have it on.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that the parking area by the church would count, and I speak without any great knowledge, but apparently the underlying principle, like when NHS says, oh, can we have 20 grand please, and KCC Education says, oh, we want so much for primary school and so much for secondary school, that's supposed to be because of, based on standard indicators, there will be more people, more needs, so the library has another £600 so they can buy 20 books, and you know, it's all that sort of thing. You can say, well, we need a bit more open space, or a bit better, you know, football pitch, or a bit of this or a bit of that. Can we say we need to spend the money on the parking area? I'm not so sure. The one that was suggested to us by the open space officer was a better play area on the village green,
Yes.
where you can say, well, population pressure equals people want somewhere to go, you know. Then you can spin an argument, but if you can't spin an argument, then the developer has the opportunity of saying it does not fall within the regulation. Can't have it.
If we wait for the 106 money though, we could be putting it on the back burner for quite
Well,
a
no,
long time.
it's the decision. Once we've got decision with the application.
We still could be waiting quite a
Oh
while.
yes, but then we can then go to Ashford and say, because we want the land, we want to say what we want to do with the land, is more reason for them to have to think about it. Even whether, I mean, if we don't get, if the planning application doesn't go through, we don't get the 106 money, we will then decide what are we going to do with that. We still want to know, but then we've got a definite one way or the other.
The 106 is a formal deed though, and it says exactly what the headings are and what the number is.
Yes, that's fine, but I'm just saying we need to know that decision. Once we know...
The decision of the 106.
Well, just whether the planning application, if it's granted...
No, once it's granted, your 106 is done. You don't get it later.
Yes,
that's the point he's making.
You've got the deal.
We'll know that that's what we...
Isn't the point that we need to be doing this in parallel, right, rather than sequence? In other words, rather than wait for whatever the planning decision is, let's make the assumption that it's going ahead, and we prepare the case accordingly, so it's absolutely right there. Because my fear is that if it does go ahead, Ashford will squirrel away the money, and I think that the
but
point
it's already been written down on the. We've already agreed this 106. That what we want, we had to do that for the 106.
Yes, but are
I
we?
don't think that's there. I don't think that's in place.
That's
that's
the
a
point.
problem.
I think Jeremy's point about, for example, the play area, what have you, we know it's a really important topic in the village. We've discussed this for several years.
Yeah.
We should be able to make a case there. We should be able to put a budget together, just an outline budget, or even get some quotes for some, get our ducks in a row, And also Jeremy's point around improved numbers and etc. You know, the sort of what I call the demographics and the social side of it. So it's an absolute watertight case. I don't think that's there at the moment. You're absolutely right. We've put our list together, but I just don't think it's as robust as we need to make it.
I don't think 106 is a very formal legal process that goes to Ashford's lawyers, and they do it in Ashford, in ABC. And I don't know if other parishes manage it better, because we have no experience of this really in any time lately. But we find it very, and we've tried, we find it very difficult to plug into that process. And incidentally, it is recognised in ABC as being a deficient process because ONS, what's it called? Something and Scrutiny, Oversight and Scrutiny Committee did a project on 106 systems, you know, even to the extent that I got interviewed on Zoom about our experience of it. I made it clear that I didn't think much to the experience that I've had. But so even ONS in Ashford knows that the process doesn't work very well. But really it's impenetrable to us virtually.
I think it's a classic case of preparing the case, if you like, that we can give to our borough councillor, all right, and say, look, this is the situation, we find it impenetrable, we don't know what's going, you know, etc., etc. We don't feel that we're necessarily as robust as we can. Here's the case for going forward if we get the money. And I just feel that he will know the gap or the opportunity or the conversation where it can be pulled up the in tray. And sometimes these decisions hang on a wafer of information or what have you, because they can't spend the pound more than once. And we just have to have, dare I say it, slightly sharper elbows than the rest of the bidders in there.
Well, clearly the developer knows the figures. We've mentioned KCC and Ashford, and they're agreeing.
Well, some of them are actually on the portal where they ask for this and ask for that.
Yes.
But they of course have got a well-oiled machine. They say 20 houses, so many bedrooms equals so much, bash it in, you know. Ashford eventually have to sign a deed with the developer. I think that's done in a kind of a draft before they give permission, and then if they give permission, the draft becomes formal. They can't get it afterwards because he could say, no, you've already given me permission, go away. And that will say exactly what the things are. It will say when he has to pay the money, in my understanding, like maybe all up front or not, I don't know. The money gets paid to Ashford, total, and then they release it to the individual categories, NHS, police, KCC, us maybe, when we can justify that we have got the, I don't know if you have to do it first and then get the money or vice versa, but you've got to have your project done. And that's another thing that we've always struggled with. There are some parishes much nearer to Ashford where getting big schemes for 100 houses here and 100 houses there is absolutely routine, and they've got a list of projects that they've already worked out, they've got them maybe designed, they've got them priced, and they just say, which one should we have? Put that one in. And we're not in that world because we're at the far end from Ashford.
Right, well, what we've done so far on this, perhaps we can review it and see if we can come up with something a little bit more concrete that may involve inviting contractors to the village green to put forward a proposal, maybe, although the village green isn't ours, you know, but it's our intention that it should be.
Yes,
there'll be correspondence relating to
No, there was a conversation between Yvonne and I and the Open Spaces officer who was new.
Yes.
And she was suggesting, because when we talked about play areas, because she came over partly to talk about our wider plans for the play area, whether it got moved and all the rest of it to the village green. And she talked about the idea of having, was it called natural play area? To us two, it meant absolutely nothing. To her, there is some sort of metaphorical idea of natural play areas. I don't know what they are. She said that would go on well here, you know, that would be something that she believed we could get money for, but we don't know what it is or where you get one.
Okay, well, let's try and investigate. But it sounds as if we could have something a little bit more concrete,
Oh, very, very much.
we've got a better
So
chance
much.
of getting.
So what are we doing? What are we agreeing to do?
Investigate the installation of a natural play area as a possibility for the village green area, should we be able to obtain it from the ownership of Ashford Borough. I mean, I'm very happy to ask around and see
Did you make any progress at the parish forum that you're going to talk to us about later with what's her name, the chief executive who was there?
Yes, Tracy Curley.
Tracy Curley.
Yeah. Well, there was quite a lot of debate. Well, we'll come to that point. But and also hopefully there's going to be a bit of a sort of WhatsApp group of parish council chairman or whatever.
Oh, good.
And I could fling out an inquiry as to
Absolutely.
who's dealt with the situation before. So, fine, we'll work on that. The land fronting St John the Baptist Church update, Alan.
I've got a bit of
Well,
to carry an interest. If I said I had to.
Yes.
And I was doing I'm told.
really? Yes, I think Alan just wants to say, as church warden, he does have a he's an interest in what happens to the land in front of the church.
Have you heard any more back from?
I have heard. Well, if I can just update. Obviously, I've had correspondence, a lot of correspondence backwards and forwards with KCC Highways, and they can't find anything that indicates that they own the land or that they have any responsibility to maintain that piece of land. I've got some plans that they've shown me. Unless we can prove that it is theirs, then we're a bit of a back to no man's land still. Regarding the brick path, Jamie, whatever his name is, Cunningham, is now has taken over from Lisa Willoughby, and he's back from his holiday. Came back yesterday, and he has actually answered my questions, and I think he does seem to be happy about having a site meeting. Are you still not able to do this Thursday?
I can't do this Thursday.
No, so I thought.
Sorry. I can do, I think, any other.
Yeah, no, he's got it in his diary still. It hadn't been crossed out. He said, could we make it? And I said, I didn't think so, but I would check tonight.
But there is a funeral this Thursday as well.
There is, well, I mean,
so you won't want somebody
I'm out of town.
Oh no, it wouldn't do it without Alan anyway.
Yeah, I'm out of town all day on Thursday, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We'll just look for another date then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he does seem to be happy.
Yeah. Keep on, tickling him under the chin, because we don't want to deter him in any way.
And we've also had an email. He was introducing himself as the new.
Well, he wants to impress us, which is nice.
Well, this is what I thought. He just did that, get the opportunity to meet us. Yeah. So I thought, well, that's all good. So yes, so I'm progressing that one.
Press him hard for a date, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, well that's what. Now, I did have to check that you couldn't make it.
I can't do Thursday, but
I did say I didn't think so.
I can do Monday mornings these days, if that's any help to you.
Monday mornings, okay.
But I can do other days as well, of course.
Right.
Preferably not Tuesday morning, because there's other things on Tuesdays. And the only thing is to say, if he's very soon, I'm having a knee operation in a week's time, which is, I might have to come and do.
I'm quite happy to give Alan the lift.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't want him to miss.
No. But anyway, see if we can get a date up, and I'll adapt my diary to fit him in the majority of situations.
Yes, right. I'll do that. So we are left. We are left now with the bit in between.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was hoping the parish council would be taking a back seat. We might want to discuss at this point.
They might.
They might.
Does anyone wish to express an opinion as to what should be done.
You're looking at the bit, not the brick path.
Yeah.
You're looking at the tarmacy area between that and the pavement.
Parking area.
Right, okay. Well, I think picking up on discussions we've had in the past, it's slowly deteriorating and it's going to need some form of maintenance in the future. That's one area. The other area is, do we leave it as open parking, or do we find ways of restricting parking? I don't know. Do we find one space at least with one of those pop-up, I think that Nicholas has got several of them, that prevents people going into a parking space, and we have reserved for the vicar on it.
Wouldn't that
Do
be
we
a
put
bit
it?
of a waste of a space? If vicars only come in, we could just put a bollard in on Sunday morning.
Well, yes.
That's what we do.
That's what we do anyhow. But there's no. The other thing is we might even mark it out, because at the moment the parking is a bit random. Some people don't seem to. Some people seem to think that's a reasonable space, which it is. Others seem to think that they need the width, half a width of a car on either side. So it's not being best utilised, and then maybe we sell the naming rights. You know, I mean, raise some money that way.
Alan,
But I think we have to do something.
You were going to talk to the acting headmistress about the parking.
So I had a really nice meeting with her, and of course they've got no money to spend on anything like this, but she wanted to cooperate as much as we reasonably can. And for instance, there were various thoughts, and I'm trying to cooperate with her. For instance, they'll have special occasions like sports days, and as you know, the parking and the cars are carnage. But Mary Mallet has letting me have a key to the apple orchard, so that I would cooperate with her to let her in there, provided it wasn't apple season. You see what I mean? So she liked that idea, and she's disposed to, for instance, asking the staff not to park there when there's something like a funeral. In fact, that's a good point for Thursday, because there's a funeral, and I shall send her an email in a minute saying please don't park there on Thursday, because we've got quite a lot of people coming.
Where else do they go?
Yes.
Where else do they go? Because if they can go elsewhere,
Well,
why don't they?
Exactly. And I'm gently exploring that and observing. I'm not actually going to say where do they go, but I'm going to work it out, if you see what I mean.
Some of the mums are dropping off parking in the village hall now.
Well, there's that, and I mean, she has put to parents collectively, can you share transport? And I think staff as well. So yes.
Sure.
And I mean, children should walk to school. It's good for them. You see what I mean? I mean, they should, you know. I mean, I don't think Wittersham is any shorter of slightly overweight children than any other school. But if they all walk to school, they probably would be less. So
good for their parents too.
Good for the parents.
Do we have any idea how much it would cost to
Well,
say re-tarmac it or whatever we were thinking of doing?
And I mean, well, that's a good point. But I mean, just outside the church there, routine tarmac would probably not quite be in keeping with a 12th century building. So I think we've got to be careful what we put. And you know, we might put tarmac down, but you can get that sort of special sort of sandy finish, can't you?
You can, yeah.
You know, rather than just black tarmac. And I'm probably not in favour of sort of white lining it. I think that again makes it a bit suburban, and we don't.
White lining.
What do you think, Sue?
White lining is the way you get people to park neatly.
Indeed, well, I mean, possibly, you know, you could have a sandy coloured surface. I don't know how you describe that, but you know what I mean. With tarmac with a sandy coloured surface, and then perhaps you'd have black strips or something. I don't know how you'd do it, but then
there's always a way. The other thing that was mentioned that we ought to consider is there should be at least one disabled parking space.
Yes.
There's nothing there at the moment, and that's something that you know. And there are quite a few blue badges in the village.
Yeah. And what I'm particularly keen on, and again it's a problem because it's a listed wall, but I think I sent some photographs around of another parking area at a church where they had rector and church warden and vicar, you know, and it was on the wall and it was on it. It was quite a nice looking sign. And
didn't come to us.
I might be able to show it to you. Let's see if I can find it. I can't think if I sent it to you. I did send it to
And
somebody.
I think we ought to bear in mind that if we do choose to do anything, we've got not just the installation of whatever surface it is, which I reckon would be certainly 5 acres probably by the time we finished it, but also not to do anything before that path.
No, the path needs to be done first.
Yeah, otherwise you'll get your
Yeah,
nice
you're
surface
absolutely
ruined by
right. Sorry,
contractors.
that's a point I had thought of and forgot to mention.
Yeah.
So we're a bit down the road because we've got to get round Jamie first.
Yes.
So you might not want to make a decision, or you might say, well, we'll follow up with something sensible.
But we
It's
can't
this-
really make a decision until we know roughly how much whatever we're going to do is going to cost.
Until we know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
If we can't do it,
And that means we then take on the maintenance forevermore. Being that way.
Well, do we?
well,
Do we?
Who else is
depends what
going to
we're doing.
maintain it?
You might say, you might
Unless
morally
you
feel that you
take-
are doing, but legally probably you aren't.
Well, it depends, Alan. If at the minute the no man's land is thought to be uncertain ownership,
Indeed.
the brick path, whether it's owned by KCC, they say it's highway and therefore they have definitely got responsibility. I know they don't feel that they're responsible for the bumps, but if anyone is, it's them. Yvonne and I took an inspection last week. My feeling is that, I know we've discussed this informally before, I don't think there's any point having Jamie out until we've got rid of the grass. I know you like it looking tatty, but he can't see his path to see what's wrong with it.
Well, we could do an area so we can see what the problem is. But I mean,
It needs weed killing, really.
I
isn't
think-
it?
I think-
You can't see the
Clear it
hazards,
up.
Sam. You can't see the hazards.
no,
You
you
can't see
can't. You
anything.
can't see the hazard, but you couldn't before. When, or perhaps put it like this: since I let the grass grow, we haven't had a fall. So you
No.
you can.
No, the grass is actually safer than the bricks.
Yes,
So
that's
some
right.
people now
Why
perhaps
don't
don't
we
like
just
walking it at all because they might get their grass seed in their socks.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, the grass is an issue because we can't see, and he can't see what the issue is with the path. I've never seen it as bad as the grass is at the minute, but at least it is highway, and we know that, and that's definite. The no man's land, we wouldn't wish to tarmac it, I suggest, unless we could demonstrate that we owned it, and we would therefore register it. And if we got it registered, it's then ours. Otherwise, we're tarmacking what someone else may say, thank you very much. I didn't save me having to do it. And if we do own it, then we would be responsible for maintenance. And then one more thing, only one. We are thinking of the no man's land as parking space, but it's also the only way to get to the church.
Absolutely not.
You have to walk across it,
Absolutely not.
and therefore
Don't like
it's getting as bad as Paul is saying. We will start having a hazard walking between the street footway and the brick path before you go in the gate.
That's right.
So something is pressing in that way anyway, which we haven't actually thought about before. We just think it's for parking, but you've got to walk across it.
No one seems to want to own it at the moment, do they? So why don't we just register ownership?
Well, we could try. And that's when you find if someone else says, oh, well,
Yeah.
that's
Why
fine.
don't we just go ahead and register ownership?
It's not shown as
We
registered.
won't have to upkeep it over here, but we've got a good caretaker, and I mean, if we register it, then at least we know where we stand.
There it is, Paul. And that apparently,
Yeah.
according to KCC, says not registered.
We can just register that then.
Okay.
He doesn't like them.
That's the sign, yes.
Actually,
So they're very pretty, yeah.
It's clear, isn't it?
Or a holiday effect.
Could the suggestion is that we agree vote
Just an example.
to try to register that land, the no man's land, for the village. Yes, I know, very suburban.
It don't look suburban on the site when
I
they
think-
took the
I
photograph.
think we should
May I
register
suggest
the land
we
for...
first get a quote to surface it before we go anywhere, because we may find that puts us off. But let's assume, Paul, sorry to interrupt you, that let's say we just get a quote for 20,000 to surface it.
Yeah.
20,000, and we say, if everything falls into place, we would be willing to do that. Or alternatively, there's no way we want to do that. If we know then that we could do what we would like to do, with or without the white lines, black lines or anything else, then we can say, okay, let's have a shot at registering it. That will cost us an amount with a lawyer and do it. And if it goes through to land registry, and I have no idea how long they take at the minute, if they then register it, then as far as I know, that actually, drops the flag on it being ours, at which point we can then go ahead with the next stage. Meanwhile, we try and get the path sorted.
Okay, so we're happy to ask you on with known approved contractors, or else we'll find somebody else to get.
Well, we do have someone that reviews before to tarmac, but you're talking about not ordinary tarmac. We need to know what sort of tarmac you're talking about.
Just by way of benchmarking, as you all know, the extensive hard standing that I introduced onto my property,
all of that,
which is about the size of this here, so that's probably about a tenth of it. I reckon we paid the guys about 400 quid, but that was for all the landscaping as well. But basically what they did was they dug it out, put rubble out, and then put planings, road planings on it. So it's a much softer surface. It doesn't look like sort of brand new Tesco car park finish. And they did a good job. But if you're not looking for sophisticated, top of the range tarmacking in something like that. But actually that would, to a certain extent, resonate with your comment about not making it look as if it's sort of, some modern development.
It's going to take time.
And I think this positivity from the Parish Council would be quite a good lever for Jamie, because if he can see that he's being asked to do the path, whereas the Parish Council is thinking favourably about doing the tarmac, then we might just encourage him in the right direction.
Okay.
I think also in the conservation area we may need, I don't know how that research, they talk
If you're not
about
careful, you'll be
resurfacing.
for listed building consent.
Because it's
Or
within,
full planning permissions, will you?
yeah,
I know, all of it a nightmare, but we can still get a quote for the work.
Yes, worth doing that.
Without.
Perhaps we write to Ashford, demand that they do it, and when they say they won't, say, well, if you won't, we will, but don't make it difficult for us.
Nice one. Yeah.
They just won't respond.
They're not pragmatists.
You're right, they won't answer.
It's worth a try.
Anyway,
They'll say they're sending Jamie
we'll
anyway.
We'll find you a picture of the sort of surface we think you might like, and maybe Paul could submit a photo of his new work, so we could look at it as a
The
possible.
weeds are growing a bit.
what weeds in it?
Okay, I think that's enough of that particular topic. For the result of caretaker scheme meeting with the ABC officer update.
Discussions are still ongoing.
Yeah, we have applied and we're determined to get an improved contribution from Ashford towards this scheme. And we believe we laid our application in the appropriate time for getting into their budget, did we not?
Oh yes, 1st of August.
Yeah, so, we've been quite well received in that area. We haven't been rejected out of hand.
Not yet, no.
No, it's in the sitting on pile.
Yeah, but we really do need to get a little bit more money into that particular budget so that we don't make a loss effectively on running the caretaker scheme. So that's where we are on that. So we've done section 4, we've done section 5. Section 6, community resilience plan. Well, Dave was there, wasn't he?
Yes, I had a quick word with him beforehand.
Yeah. So Dave Fletcher could be the leading on this particular thing.
Don't know if anyone else has done this. I had a look yesterday at the, whatever they call themselves, KRE or something, or KRF.
Yes.
I actually took a look at the templates.
This one.
That
Yeah.
sort of thing. And then there are bits that drop out of it. The idea is to do it online.
Yeah.
As an electronic thing, and there are a whole load of pages, but then various bits of it open out into more. It is very comprehensive from a quick glance, and it will take someone a long, long time.
Whereas the piece that you will have read in the Cult News is saying that don't get too worried about it, because if you've got emergency plan, which we already and spent an awful lot of time doing that. This is the one that Pat Homewood was sort of the coordinator, but this is one that Dave Fletcher will take over. So really, this is the one, if you're happy, that we just need to update, because it's virtually the same. I had responded.
I think so. It's virtually the same. I didn't
Very
study it,
similar.
but the templates go into a lot of scenarios,
Yes.
a lot of issues that we didn't really think about.
Yeah.
I think for
So it's a
time-
case of whether we keep with the one we've already got and update it, or whether we start afresh with something that's really complicated.
I would be inclined, if we want to actually do it, you do the full thing, which will be pushed onto in due course anyway.
Well,
It will take a lot of
Wouldn't
time.
it make,
but it will cover a lot of
make
things.
sense in terms of available time just to kind of refresh what we've already got on the grounds that there's nothing wrong with bringing it up to date because Pat was doing this 7 years ago, and secondly, if we bring it up to date, if we do get forced into doing the full works at some stage, we've got 85% of the information is not only there but current.
Yeah.
I think with the fact that we're into the winter almost now, that we need to get what would be quicker to get what we've done, already got up to date, and then perhaps when we've
There's no
got the
harm in
time
doing that. I'm
to
really saying
think
that
about
it's
the
not
other
enough.
one.
Yes.
The other one has got to be
Yes.
done at some point.
Yes.
Do we pay the local farmers a standing rate to keep on the roster for road clearance when we...
Ashford's.
That's Ashford,
Yes.
is it? Okay.
Or Kate, no, sorry, it's
Kate.
Highways. Kate. Yeah, they have a.
So can we agree that are we asking Dave in the first instance to look at the
Yes, I'll get
emergency
to.
plan
Yes, I'll get together.
and to bring it to in draft form to our next meeting or the one after that if you can't manage the next one. That is very kind of him. Item 7. There is a consultation paper out promoted by NULC, suggesting that government should permit remote meetings for public meetings, including down to the level of the parish council. And I know there are 1 or 2 views on this around the table, so Jeremy, I know you've thought about this rather, haven't you? If you'd like to give your view.
Well, I'm not. We're talking about the remote meetings. Yes.
Yeah, the remote meetings.
I'm not happy with it. I did print off what they said. I knew that for a while NALC have been very keen to get this through. This all came from the days of COVID, of course. My own view is that whether they do it at KCC level and ABC level, as they now do, I think, with hybrid meetings, as they call them, I think at parish council level we're in a completely different world, and I would be very reluctant to see. I mean, I chaired the meetings when we had COVID. That was a different matter. That's what we had to do. In fact, Miriam, who's still with us, she used to attend them quite regularly. We did what we had to do. But as far as parish council meetings outside of that emergency are concerned, we should meet in public. We should meet together so that we can follow each other without all the you're on mute and who's talking next and what was all that about. And secondly, that we are here for the public to come and see, to come and talk to us, even at the 3-minute level, and hear what we say. And I just don't think a remote. It's not as though we've got any distance to travel. I mean, KCC are coming from all over Kent to Maidstone. We're not. We're coming from anywhere up to 1.5 miles away in Alan's case. You know, there's no excuse not to do it in public, and I think that we can't stop the government giving them permission. We can't stop them now pushing for it, although they shouldn't. But we really should be very reluctant to go on the slippery slide, or the parish council will be even less of significance to our residents than it is already.
I agree with you wholly. We make sounder decisions when we're all good.
Yeah.
I do agree, but I think there might be a case for an emergency when actually it would suit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if there's an emergency, we have another COVID, that's another matter.
COVID, or in Eagle's case, snow.
War.
Yeah, but they are saying anytime you see.
Do we? My preference is for meetings in person. I do a lot of remote meetings, but my own preference. But I'm just thinking, if we're looking to the future, and we're looking to engage generations below us, are we being short-sighted in not at least exploring? I don't like the word hybrid, but that's something where we at least right now today we do not have the technology, but there are parish councils and there are organisations that do have the technology doing it hybrid. So I feel that that at some stage in the future, I'm sure that technology will play a greater part, and I think that we ought to at least bear that in mind. It's not going to happen overnight. My preference is for meetings in person, but maybe at some stage we offer the public the opportunity of observing and even participating remotely as well, because frankly, by and large, we don't get much of a participation in our parish council meetings. We'll usually average sort of 5 or 6 people, but out of the sort of population we've got. So I just think we need to at least consider future capabilities.
I used to attend the 6-monthly meeting for Calc while I was still chairing Calc, with all the Calc borough or district chairmen. So I was Ashford. So there were up to 12 or 13 of us, plus the Calc head office, plus the police and crime commissioner and his staff officer, and the assistant chief constable and his or later her staff officer. And it was a hybrid in the police place, mostly out at Northfleet, with a few people joining on the screens at the end. And the police had got it all set up for hybrid meetings, and it was absolutely bloody useless. The people on the screens were hardly here or there. No one ever knew whether they were there. You couldn't hear them. They couldn't hear us. The guy was always faffing around with the machine, and they were doing that all the time. It was useless. The chance of us making we managed on Zoom at home before, but a hybrid meeting in a room with people like us, and then a screen and a camera, and by the way, how many cameras with us sitting where we are, and people able to even observe from home, let alone speak to it, very messy.
I think, believe me, I'm very much with you on, we've been talking about trying to bring people together and giving them the option of attending remotely means we might even lose our 6 who come anyway.
I'm not suggesting we do it all.
No.
But we talk remotely.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an occasion when all councillors are valued, and our clerk particularly is valued, for some reason is confined to their home but able to attend the meeting remotely, then I think we might consider making an exception. But for the time being, I think we just observe what becomes permissible, and then in due course, from time to time, discuss it, debate it if we feel that it's becoming more relevant.
Well, I think if you look at the piece that was sent out, obviously they're asking for parish councils and town councils and everybody to respond, but they're also asking for individual councillors and clerks to participate as well. So, I mean, as a council, we don't have to say anything, but as councillors, you can all participate and say what you think.
And
that's not just...
That's on the CULT website?
Yeah.
Okay. Item 8, consider items for inclusion in the proposed budget for 25-26. This is really to ensure that any capital expenditure we might be considering
just things that we can
properly allowed for. We've got the possibilities of relaying of the paving around the memorial, for which quotes are one's
yes,
already
that's already coming into this book. I'm thinking about just whether anybody's got any ideas of, it's sort of a bit like a wish list, but is anything?
The cleaning of the war memorial.
Didn't we do that last year? Do we need to do it every year?
Oh, it's a while since
we've done it. Longer than that.
Yeah, it is.
we do have something already in the reserves, I think, because we used to put a certain amount away sort of each year ready for the next cleaning, so there probably is something already in there from what I remember, but I can certainly have that.
Is there anything Alf would like to do beyond what he's doing at the moment that he hasn't got the budget for at all? You know, is that worth asking him for his input? Because he is the eyes and ears around the village. And
I mean, cemetery work comes to mind on that, because there is all the overgrown graves which he does in the winter. That's part of it anyway.
And the other thing I was going to say is at the bottom of the footpath down there, the gill, all the posts and rails are all trashed and fallen over. If you walk down the side of the cemetery, down to the gill, and then up to the field, all of that's all. Is it there, or is it the one further?
No, we've had that done.
Was it? Okay. It wasn't a couple of weeks ago.
No, you're thinking that. I just want to say that's going out towards.
It's when you walk across from Back Street, across the field to the gate.
Yes,
through the orchard. That all the things.
Yes, that's not ours. It's not ours.
Whose is it?
It's the Marit's land.
Oh right. There's several people that mentioned to me that why isn't that being repaired? And I thought it was part of the footpath empire.
No,
we did it. Okay.
We did it. Right. Because that was ours.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, yeah. So how do we? Well, could we send a polite letter to request it gets repaired, or?
I think she probably already knows, because she thought it was ours. Yes.
Right.
I did tell her.
But you've clarified.
Oh yes,
have you? Okay.
Yes.
So those people in the village who think what's the parish council doing about this broken down? And it's dangerous because children could fall in and drown.
Yes.
So we need to, because it's the land is leased to Collingwood.
No, well, I'm not sure about that bit.
Isn't it?
No, that's the bit that it's between the orchard and the field. So it's the gill.
Yes.
That's where it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
And
say
actually,
that
it's
was.
only the gate. Or gate.
Oh, the gate and the
It's
fence.
the posts and the rails and all,
Yeah.
and they've fallen over. I mean, at one stage I thought, it looks like someone's doing something.
Yes,
And
that's
then I
what we
looked at
thought.
it and thought, has this been vandalised or
Rotted.
rotted? Or I think David Chesson made a comment on something.
Oh, that was our one.
Was it? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
That was down by the cemetery.
Yes, because he would know.
Oh, yeah, he would.
Because he was on the council when it was repaired before.
Oh, nice, okay.
So he said it's our responsibility.
If it were any other third party, we would probably send them a sort of rather impolite.
I think Mary is well aware.
Yes, well,
Right.
responsibility lies anyway.
Right, so I've got that. Anybody else thought of anything else? Ask her. Okay. Probably see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 9, correspondence. Not entirely surprising.
No.
Reduction in the interest rate on our instant access account. So nothing to say about that really, but it is what it is. Working party reports, caretaker, anything specific?
Only that you put out the signs for make those available and for closing the road bit on Sunday. And the wreaths he attaches to the rack thing that he made, so that they started blowing around, which he found today. He has also put a mirror again up at the end of Acton Lane.
Oh.
That's in place now.
Where did they all go?
You get knocked off by the tractor.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes, it was.
Could we not put a little dash cam up there?
We know who it is.
Well, exactly, but they needed evidence, you know.
Yeah, so that he put
It's
that up.
good, because I came out the other day thinking, I was looking at it thinking, oh, it's gone. You know, I poked the nose out and whoosh! Somebody.
Yeah, well, there's a mirror.
It's not a great turning.
Mirror done. He put it in today.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Monthly transaction statements, you kindly sent those through. Any particular comments relating to those?
No, we've got the Ashford, the second precepts in.
Yes. Okay. The healthy Legislative Affairs.
And the date, please.
The
12th.
date,
Thank you. And that's back healthy because we got the contribution from Ashford.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the planning considered since last meeting.
That's the agenda. All the planning has on the agenda.
Yes, yeah,
There's
so
nothing
that one
to
we
say.
dealt with. And Triburn is the one next to Nicholas House, isn't it? There's been
Yeah.
issues over, but he's got his consent, it would seem.
Did you say they'd visited regarding the fencing?
Sorry,
The tray barn. Did you say their planners had visited regarding?
they visited, and the condition that the orchard
Yeah.
hadn't been planted up has gone to planning enforcement. But he did say, if you remember at the meeting,
Do
that
it.
that was the problem he would do it.
He would do
So
it, yeah.
I can't see that as being a problem there.
Open spaces,
Nothing new.
nothing new, fine. Public right of ways,
No.
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 Highways, we're still waiting, aren't we?
No,
Oh.
on this space.
Can we move it?
Right, yes, I obviously, the 90 days were up, so I chased to find out what was going on, and it was an issue with booking road space. However, they've booked it 19th and 20th of December.
December.
Oh.
So between 8 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the road will be closed.
Completely, or just drive around the ladder.
Road will be closed.
And the school holidays have started by then.
No.
No.
No, they're closed. On the 20th they break up then.
So which way is the bus going to go then?
Well, they will have had 20th.
It's up to them.
Well,
For our folks to.
So the bit that they're closing
Thursday,
at this
Friday.
moment will be between Harbour Vineyard and the junction with Pastor Court Road.
Right before Christmas.
Cooper's Corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the diversion will be down Cooper's Corner then?
Right, well,
We passed on.
Why?
yes,
It's
down
usual.
the way.
As usual, I assume.
Pedestrian access will be maintained during the works.
That's handy.
Because it's hard to go on the other side of the water.
Yes.
Well, truly.
Yes, so I will put a piece on next door
Yeah.
closer to the time. But I think it might be worth adding this to the chairman's report.
Mm.
Yes.
That it's being done then.
Yes, we probably won't do
Yes.
it
And
now.
then it will be in the December, so people down there will know
Yeah.
it's coming up, and will remind them that.
And all they're doing is road signs. So just put a post in and a ladder.
Yes. 3 men of a
They'll
job.
be trying to drive round it, won't they?
How many? It's just
2 days.
2 days, a day per post.
Yeah, well, it's got a set, hasn't it?
Okay,
Yes.
actually I've just had a road sign fall over outside my gate after many years of, I don't know, and seeing how deep in the ground, just for a single Z-bend, it's amazing, the foundations for these.
You have to hit it really hard.
Right.
Did it fall or was it knocked?
Then they fell and it's now been disposed
It's a
of.
good
The
Agatha
actual
Christie line, that's murder by lamppost.
Cemetery and
I
churchyard.
don't think there's anything. No.
No, we're engaging the biodiversity.
Yes,
Are we-
that's, yeah,
Mm.
yes, well she'd said November before she could do anything.
So the flow of this would be to get the biodiversity statement and then send that to the planners, and then hopefully they'll say something useful.
You don't need plans then?
Well, that would be lovely,
Mm.
but
Don't like
hold my
that.
breath on that one.
Yeah, don't
That's it, doesn't it?
Then we just don't have any. We just got to hope we don't have the rotten burials in the meat.
It's still your man, don't worry.
No, I do. I'm worried about these things.
Churchyard.
You have an arboretum.
Well, John's the expert on country burial.
Woodland burial. Yes.
Woodland burial.
Okay, a report from me on the parish forum that I attended on the 15th of October. It was really quite interesting in terms of Ashford Borough Council being represented at quite a high level, including the Chief Executive. So it was a good networking opportunity. They covered local climate and energy. There were some very good things said about our climate group, Kate and Greg. You know, that's considered a really good initiative. And hopefully we can build on that here. But I think they're also considered to be experts by other boroughs as well, consulted.
That's because they got the climate change number 2 over to their last meeting.
They did, that's right, yeah. And health and well-being, with discussion about what can be done locally to make people more healthy. The idea of more sport and more play, obviously, came up.
Less coffee and cakes.
Yes, and yeah, basically encouraging us to use the resources of Ashford Borough Council, which is music to one's ears, whether you know, and a few contacts. And from my personal perspective, you know, I was sitting between 2 other parish council chairpersons, and they are building whether it's a WhatsApp group or just a contact group. We've been asked whether we're prepared to have our emails and spread around, and hopefully that will produce a list of people that I can ask in circumstances like our S106 that we're a little bit inexperienced in, for people to come forward and explain a little bit more about the sensible and appropriate way to act in these cases. So yeah, and like all these things, I think networking opportunities is as important as anything else, really.
And in fact, one of the links on there that you were given was Andrea, who is the walks coordinator, so the walk and talk that I run all comes under that healthy well-being thing. So we do have that in the village.
Next council meeting, we all know that at the moment preceded by refreshments, so that whether that will double the numbers of our attendees if the word gets round.
You're doing your chairman's allowance.
Yes, I did query that when I first got project details and saw the chairman's allowance on it. I put my ears up on it.
There's some quite good deals for mince pies in the local supermarkets at the moment. Just flag up.
A little bit early to buy them.
Well, yes.
Could we make sure the heating's on for the next meeting?
Is it not on at all?
Yeah.
It's bad, isn't it? But it's on, last month it was fine.
Get a discount.
So, items for information, Yvonne.
Well, yes, I just thought we might like to know the things that I've been doing. 16th Rail, Kent Rail Summit. 71, it was a team's thing, 71 attended that. The theme was partnerships. There's a new fleet of ticket vending machines coming. Next year is the 200th birthday of the railway, so there'll be celebrations headed Railway 200. There was information on the Bring Back International Rail Partnership campaign, encouraging people to sign the petition. Eurostars, although Eurostars still won't be stopping this year or next year. Update from Southeastern Trains.
But thereafter?
We don't know. This is what they want people to sign the petition to, encourage that.
Of course.
Customer and community. Yes, this Customer and Community Improvement Fund. Kent submitted the most bids for that. There was a lady from the Transport for the South East spoke on improving rail across the region. However, it took her ages to sort out her sharing slides thing, leaving her little time to give her presentation. So she just raced through that, and I couldn't understand anything she was talking I, just for interest's sake, I attended, that was another Teams thing, HMRC statutory sick pay. They kept reiterating the first 3 days waiting, that you have to call waiting days before sick pay gets paid. And that's one of the things that the new government has brought in, you'll get paid from the first day, so they've changed that. Online safety awareness. So that was done through my community voice and was really scary. It was led by a former police officer. She gave the presentation. The most interesting fact that I found was that it's better to have online banking on your mobile than to go onto their website and do it that way.
Why?
What?
Biometrics.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
All mine are facial recognition and what have you. Yeah, I stopped doing it online. It's
Yeah, no, I haven't. I don't. I've never had
I've
that.
one of these little keypads though, which I, since it's also hidden my driver's fairly
For further information, you can get Safe Online, which is website, and they've got loads of information on that.
They have been pushing the various online scams and cyber harms very well and very effectively, and it's really frightening.
Exactly.
It really is frightening.
Yes.
You know, it's never going to happen to you. It's never going to happen to me. And the stories that they explain it very well in my community. They do good service there.
It was very good, but scary. I missed the scribe budgeting and forecasting. That was just a half-hour training. AI in action. That was a practical insights for the parish clerk. Run by scribe. 79 attended that. There's so many to choose from. They were suggesting using Chat GTP. Anyone experience with that?
GPT.
GPT. It's interesting that I use something called Otter for writing all my reports.
Oh, that was another one they mentioned.
Speak into it and then it transcribes. Yes. The spelling is pretty good. What they've just introduced 2 weeks ago is they'll develop a summary for you using AI. Yeah. And I read through the summary on various things and I'm thinking, oh, wasn't that meeting? I mean, it really is extraordinary. But it reads in a very credible way. Yeah. But it's really quite, I think, worrying how it can just slip.
Yes.
And if you're a busy person, you've got all this coming through and you read it through and think, oh, yeah, okay, fair enough, that makes sense.
Well, you're saying it wasn't true?
It wasn't. It was actually candidate interviews and I thought, this was not what I
don't want it, not this.
But it's happening and all we can do is be vigilant.
Yeah, but what I thought was amusing that they were advertising this diary of an RFO, which responsible financial officer, which covers me as well, and they put this picture out saying this typical clerk, and there's a Facebook page for clerks. Corner is called. There's one for councillors too. If you're interested, councillors corner they call it. Yeah, so this was advertised, and the couple of comments that came through. One was, she looks way too serene to be a clerk or RFO. Look, she's even smiling. And another one, fake, there's no G&T in her hand. Which I thought was...
She is now in phase of a new housing development.
Anyway, yes, so that's basically what I've been doing.
Thank you very much. Right.
We need a proposer and seconder to...
Yes, to resolve the sensitivity of the next item means that we need to exclude the public. Can I have a proposer that we do this? We've got two there. So Sue and Jeremy.
Okay.
All in favour?